have any questions for Nathan?
Can you tell us about the Acapulco concert? That was one of your first performances as Yanni Voices, is that right? And what that felt like for probably for all of you. It looked like obviously Chloe was very emotional.
Right.
How old is Chloe?
Chloe's 21.
21. So that was probably a lot of for major big performance. That must have been really frightening. Like, what was the vibe on that particular day?
Performing in Acapulco was definitely a magical experience. You know, we've been working on this project for about 2.5 years. We've been working in the studio, we've been writing music, and then we've just rehearsed nonstop with the orchestra to get ready for it. And so when we finally, the opening night especially, when we finally got on that stage and just stood out and just felt the energy from the audience, and then once the orchestra started playing and then we started singing with it, it was nothing short of a magical experience.
Anyone else?
Okay, so how did you get your first big break? Like you said, Rick, was it Rick? Somebody introduced you to
Rick
Yanni?
Wick.
Okay, how did you get started and when did you feel like you really entered into the music industry and you felt like, okay, this is my big break?
I would say that it started with the introduction of Rick Wake. What I did is I happened to know someone who knew a few people in the industry. I asked if this person could make a few introductions. So I started out with a couple auditions out in LA, and through one of those auditions I was able to meet Rick Wake, and then the rest just kind of fell into place by meeting Yanni. So, you know, as they say, connections do make a lot. Do make a ton of difference in everything. And so I was fortunate enough to be introduced to the right people, and in particular Rick and Yanni.
Hi, I was wondering what kind of formal music training you had, and did you study opera and perform opera also? Or?
I did. I started out, as I mentioned, I started out studying classical music in the home. I studied classical piano, classical violin. But then about halfway through high school, I started focusing more on singing. My older sister is actually an opera singer. And so while she was studying opera, I was exposed to it quite a bit, and that kind of triggered my curiosity. And so I started taking private voice lessons. I studied opera out at BYU. I studied abroad in Italy. And then in addition to that, I'm still studying, for that matter, in Manhattan with a teacher there. It's a work in progress.
Okay, I know the woman who threw the bra has a question.
You're awesome. I actually feel a little bit like I've defaced, art in some way. What do you think of nursing moms? I'm married, but in general. I should phrase that in a way that's not embarrassing for you.
I think it's a beautiful thing and a wonderful thing. It needs to happen.
Hi, thanks so much.
You'll never be asked that again.
Thanks so much for coming and answering questions.
Of course, my pleasure.
You mentioned that it was really important to you as a child to be exposed to music and music lessons. Something I think a lot of moms struggle with is how much exposure is the right amount. Taking kids to lessons, what if they say we're tired? Where does the motivation come? Do you help your child find inner motivation, or do you have to have your own motivation? Could you just talk a little bit about being a child and taking music lessons? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I knew that. That's a good question.
Well, when I grow up, I want to be... But, first of all, I believe that all of you probably know a lot more than I do, since you all have children and I don't. But I've thought a lot about that myself, actually, because I'm sure that there's a balance, because children are not just self-motivated to go off and and reach their dreams. They need the help of a parent. And speaking from personal experience, I've always loved music. It's always been a part of my life. I've always loved listening to music. Classical music was always on in the home. But there were also times when I didn't really care to have anything to do with it. And my mom kind of took me as a belligerent student to voice lessons or to piano lessons or to violin lessons. And of course, looking back now, I'm incredibly grateful that she did, because if I would have quit when I was younger, not knowing any better, then I definitely wouldn't be doing this right now. And so, I don't know, I guess you gotta kind of just follow your heart in that one and recognize the gifts or abilities that your children have and try to cultivate them and respecting them, of course, but at the same time, knowing that later on down the road they'll probably be grateful if you help them stick to a worthwhile task.
This is a conference so much about social media and blogging and new media. Have you guys used a Facebook page or blogs or anything to be able to get the word out and use the power of social media?
We have actually. There are different Facebook pages and MySpace pages, and there are also other people kind of taking care of different media blitzes on the internet. And so, as we all know, it's an incredibly valuable source to get the word out there these days. But I'm sure you can find MySpace pages to each one of the artists and to the project up there.
Okay, we're going to have a final question before we move on outside. Raise your hand.
Do you have a Twitter account?
I don't actually. I was actually just introduced to Twitter about a month ago, and so I'm a little behind schedule. Forgive me. I'll hop on the bandwagon.
Can I have my bra back?
I don't have it.
All right, everyone, we're going to have Nathan out in the foyer. He'll be signing autographs, and you can ask him more questions there personally. And thank you.